Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In previous video we learned how to develop a custom component library using Angular framework, and we also developed one input component. So let's consider we have a problem statement wherein we want a user to enter his username or first name or second name or last name. So in that case, user can do it in two ways. So the first way is user can enter whatever name he want in the input field, and then we can have props for those things. And the second way is we can provide support for Angular template or reactive forms. So the first approach is the more tedious way of doing it, because we'll have to handle everything through props. Like we'll have to handle the error validations, we'll have to handle the disabled states of the form control, and everything like the value change or the focus event or the blur events. Everything will be done using props or output events. But we can do it in a simpler way also if we make use of Angular reactive or template driven forms. So let's try that out in this video. So this was the component which we developed in the last video, which was a very simple input component. So we'll move on to the code. So if you remember from the last video, we had a projects folder, and inside that projects folder we had one input component where all of our input component code is placed, and then parallel to this projects folder we have one demo Angular application where we can test our components. So we have imported our input component here like this, and which is getting rendered on UI like this. Now we want to use this custom input component with Angular reactive or template driven forms. So let's go ahead and let's try it out with template driven approach. So I'll assign ng model to it, and I'll give this model a name which I'll define in the component. Name could be anything. I'm naming it as John. And if you remember, if we are using ng model, then we'll have to import the forms module, which is from at angular slash forms. Okay. So now we have imported forms module because the definition of ng model is present inside the forms module. So now if we go to browser, we see that it is not displaying John inside the text field, though we have given the ng model. But you'll observe one strange thing, which is, okay, I haven't saved this file, which is you'll see an error in the console which is saying that no value accessor for form control with unspecified name attribute. Now the reason behind this error is this input component which we have developed is the custom input component, and Angular does not know about it. So if you're trying to bind Angular specific features, like if you're trying to bind ng model, or if you're trying to use this component with either reactive forms, it will throw an error because we haven't binded some special interface to it, which will help us in solving this problem. So how we can solve this problem is we'll have to take help of ControlValueAccessor, which is an interface which is exposed by Angular framework, and we'll have to implement that interface in our component. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's move to our input component. So this is our input component, and what we'll do here is we'll implement that interface. So ControlValueAccessor from at angular slash forms will import that. Now it will give us an error that we'll have to import, we'll have to implement its functions also. So basically this interface comes with four functions. You can see its definition. This is the interface, and these are the four functions: write value, register on change, register on touched, and set disabled. We'll see in a bit why do we need these functions. So let's go ahead and implement these functions. So what we'll do is, to save time, we'll directly copy them from here. I'll explain why do we need all of them. So we have copied register on change. Same thing we'll do for register on touched. We'll do the same thing for set disabled, and then we'll do the same thing for write value. So this dot value equals to the value which is coming from here, and then we'll have to define these functions. Then we'll have to define on touched. Okay, yeah, good. Okay, we have implemented control value accessor interface, and then we'll have to add some piece of code in the providers, which is, okay, it will take an array of objects, and we'll have to add ng value accessor over here. So, and then we'll have to write use existing, and then our component name will come here, and then multi true. Okay, so we have implemented the basic things. Now we'll go to our sample Angular app where we were trying to use it with ng model, and we'll go on to the browser. We'll see that now that error has gone. Okay, so but still we don't see the value which we have binded in the text box. For that we'll figure out that also in a bit. But now we are not getting that error, because what we have done is we have implemented control value accessor interface. We have overridden its four methods which we need to implement control value accessor interface in custom form controls. Now we'll figure out why that is not working. So we'll go to its HTML, and we see that we haven't binded the value prop for it. So we will bind it. Now if we go to our component, we see that the value which we assigned to the model is getting populated in the text box. Now we'll see why we have implemented these four functions. So write value, what this function will do is, whatever value we are assigning to our form control, it will basically write that to the form control. Register on change, what it will do is, so for example, we have done anything, we have, for example, if I come here, if I change anything, uh, if you'll observe that we have some classes on this form control: ng untouched, ng pristine, ng valid. Even though we touched it, but the classes are still ng untouched and ng pristine. They should be ng touched and ng dirty, because we have made this field dirty. So these functions are for that. We'll have to call that functions whenever we are doing anything inside the control, so that we update the classes to the correct classes. They gets updated automatically. We just have to call this function. So I'll show you in a bit how to do that. So let's move on to HTML. We'll write a input change function here, name it as on input change. I'll take the event also, define the function in our component. Event could be anything. It will basically give me an the input change. So now over here I'll call this function. Okay, so it will take in value event dot target dot value. Similarly, we want to do for touched also. So we'll do that on blur when user leaves the focus. So that's why we are doing it on blur, on input blur. We'll define this function here, and then this dot underscore on touched. Why I have done this is we can directly assign these functions here as well. That will also work, but I have defined these functions so that before marking them on touched, if you want to do some other stuff, you can do that here, and then you can mark them as on touched. This is a better way of doing it. So now let's move on to the view, and we'll see if our classes are getting updated or not. So if I come here, you can see, okay, still they are not getting updated. We'll have to figure out what's the issue. It looks like our HTML is not saved. Okay, so if you can see that the class is changed to ng dirty, and as soon as I leave the focus, now it is ng touched also. So that's why we need these functions, the ones which we have defined above. We'll come to set disable state in a bit. So now let's move on to our app input component. We have seen that it is working perfectly fine with template driven approach. Let's go ahead and define a form. Basically we want to use it with the reactive forms. So we'll define a form group, and then the name of our form group, demo form, sorry. Okay, and then we'll copy this component, we'll comment it out for some time, and then we'll define here our form control name. We'll name it as name. Okay, let's move on to our component. Let's define our form group. I have to import it. Okay, now let's write our ng on init, where we'll define our form, initialize our form basically, sorry. This dot demo form is equal to new form group, and we'll define our form controls inside that. So our form control name is name, form control, and then we have given it some value. Okay, we'll give it a value called John Smith. Okay, reactive forms module. Okay, looks like that error has gone now. Okay, so we have initialized our form with the value John Smith. And then in HTML we have defined our form, we have binded a form control also. So let's go and test our component. So if you can see, it is getting populated with the default value. And if I inspect on this, so the classes are ng pristine, ng valid, ng touched. I haven't touched it yet. So if I go here, I type anything, ng pristine should change to ng dirty. So now it is ng dirty, and as soon as I leave the focus, it is ng touched also. So our integration with control value accessor is working fine. Now there is one more method which we have written, and which I haven't explained yet, which is set disabled state. Why do we need this? Why do we have to override it? So we have to override it just in case we want to make our component disabled on some criteria. So we'll create a variable here is component disabled, which will be boolean and which will be by default false. What we'll do is we'll go to our component, we'll write a disabled attribute, and we'll bind it with this variable. Now what we have to do is, okay, so this should come as an input prop. Now what we have to do is we just have to update the state of the variable. Okay, I'm doing something wrong, give me a moment. Okay, this should not be a prop. We have binded it in the HTML, and then let's go to our component. Name disabled. Okay, let's create a variable here as well, which is false by default. So what I'm gonna do is I'll create a set timeout. So after some time, I'll make this control as disabled. So I'm keeping the time as 200 milliseconds, and after 200 milliseconds, I'll make this name control disabled. I'm turning it to true. Okay, so we'll make it as an input prop, and then we'll go to our app component.html, basically where we are testing our components, and we'll bind that variable to this input prop. And then if you observe, we'll refresh this page, this is enabled. After 2000 milliseconds or 2 seconds, it is disabled. So that's how we are using set disabled state function we have overridden from control value accessor interface. So that's all about how to use our custom form controls or custom components with Angular template or reactive driven forms. I hope this video helped. Thanks everyone for watching this video.